This is a keyboard or a picture of my professional consultant's keyboard. As you can see, the A is worn off. This is from typing accessibility so much. This missing A represents every missing access point that is hard to find in rural communities. My capstone is on ADA accessibility in Canyon City, Colorado. My driving question is, how can I improve inclusivity and empower individuals with mobility challenges to engage more in Canyon City? Hi, my name is Cameron. I'm in the business pathway. I interned for the CCHS yearbook, and I'm majoring in business at UCCS in the fall. I enjoy photography and going to the gym, and I'm a member of the yearbook club. Here's my graduation journey and transcript. This is my professional consultant. His name is Rob Gilkerson. He's a wheelchair user of 45 years, and he graduated from Colorado State University. He is also an ADA consultant. The summary of my capstone is that I created a social media account to provide resources. The resources include accessible restaurants, accessible activities, advocates, transportation, and just an overall support group for people with physical disabilities. The purpose of my capstone was to improve and encourage inclusivity in Canyon City. My goal was to provide a resource for people with physical disabilities to better navigate Canyon City. My background information was that I myself and family members have struggled finding resources in Canyon. Here's my Facebook page. It's called Rolling Together Canyon City. We currently have 76 followers. Here's my timeline. I started in June, where I researched professional consultants with my swap coordinator, and then July 9th is when I met my professional consultant, Rob Gilkerson. July 21st was my first survey training. I met Rob at CCMS, and he taught me how to do all the measurements and complete the surveys. And the entire month of August, I spent practicing doing surveys on my family's businesses. September 8th, I met Mr. Gilkerson, and we found out that Google already has a wheelchair access feature, and the issue with it is that it's not always correct, and a lot of businesses have it when they shouldn't. And September 13th was when we did our first surveys to see if it was true, and we completed Julian's Taco Shop, the Poorhouse, and Fremont Provisions. On September 21st, me and Rob completed our second group of surveys. We did Royal Gorge Creamery, Boudreaux's Barbecue, World's End, Nirvana, and Standard Oil Coffee Company. On October 10th, I did my first set of surveys fully by myself, and I completed El Caporal, Yummy Thai, and Whitewater Rooftop Social. On September 8th, we did our final group of surveys. Me and Rob completed the Owl Cigar Store, Christie's on Main, Sally's Bakery, Harding's on Main, and Doritos. And then October 10th, I wrote letters to each one of the businesses, and Rob helped me edit each of them. October 12th, I created my Facebook page, and October 28th, I started doing the research on what I was going to post, and I've been posting ever since then. knowledge and communication, reading and writing. I'm going to show each one of these artifacts individually. Here are my Google restaurant reviews. I did 19 in total, and this was a good way of talking to the restaurants publicly. And these are my letters to the restaurants after the surveys, and this was a good way to more privately address all the restaurants without telling everyone what we saw. And these are my professional emails and messages. Here are my Facebook group captions. I had to do a lot of planning and research before recommending each place. Knowledge and communication. I'm going to show each one of these individually. Here are my emails and phone calls. Here are some of my meetings. Here are my Facebook group conversations. A lot of my Facebook posts were questions because I wanted to spark conversation throughout the community and get more people's input. And here are my 3 math principles. I chose 3, 4, and 5. For math principle 3, constructs viable arguments and critiques the reasoning of others. The spreadsheet on the bottom shows all the different measurements that I took in the restrooms. And then the pie chart at the top compares each one, whether they met the expectations or didn't meet the expectations. And this graph shows that only half the bathroom amenities meet the ADA standards. Math principle 4, models with mathematics. The top one is the ADA requirements, and the bottom one is all the data points that I took measurements in at each restaurant. And I logged data for over 19 restaurants and had over 11 data points for each. I compared the measurements and highlighted the colors, indicating whether they met the ADA standards or not. This spreadsheet helps organize the data and address a real-world problem that not all the restaurants are fully ADA compliant. This was a close-up of the restrooms. The bottom one is the ADA standards, and the top one is the measurements that we took. Math principle 5, I used appropriate tools strategically. I added up the value of each category for each restaurant, and I compared them, and then I found the top 2, which were Standard Oil Coffee Company, which was 1, and the Poorhouse, which was top 2. And then math principle 5, I used appropriate tools strategically. For this one, I found the values of each color. The blue was partially met the ADA expectations. The green was fully met, which was 10 points, and then the red was not met expectations at all, which was 0 points. And the blue was 5 points too. And Whitewater Rooftop Social was the only restaurant with an elevator, which I see as a plus, but I did not want to add it and mess with the other restaurant scores, so I just didn't include the elevator. And then the traits and skills I chose were agility and contribution. For agility, I completed the set surveys independently. I approached staff alone, and when offered money from a restaurant, I had to deal with this unexpected situation. I learned to trust my gut and to know what the right thing to do is. When they wouldn't take the money back, I sent it back in their letter. I can apply this lesson to every aspect of my life, knowing what's wrong and what's right. For contribution, the goal of my Facebook group was to empower individuals that have physical disabilities to get more involved in the community. What I learned was that empowerment comes from taking challenges and responsibility. I grew in maturity, professionalism, and confidence. I can apply this in the future. This project made me more aware of others who have similar struggles, and I feel more understood. This helps me to be more confident and empowered overall in my everyday life. The lessons I learned that ADA tools and guidelines do exist, but there is very little enforcement, which leaves major accessibility barriers in Kansas City. My project answered my driving question by giving me real data, conversations, and evidence about where accessibility needs improvement. Balancing schoolwork and my capstone often made me feel overwhelmed, but reminding myself that this issue is real and helped me stay focused. I learned I can stay organized and get things done even under stress. My project helped me become more confident in communicating clearly, analyzing information, and standing firm in my work. This reinforced my commitment to pursuing accounting. My call to action is that I encourage the community to be aware of wheelchair users and treat them respectfully. Notice accessibility barriers and speak up when changes are needed. And support inclusive practices. Small actions like checking accessibility, reporting issues, and advocating for change can make Kansas City a more welcoming place for everyone. Thank you to Rob Gilkerson, Ms. Gunkel, Ms. Epperson, Ms. Price, and the CCHS front office. And there's my table of contents.
Hi, my name is Emma Weber, and this is Pattern to Profit. My capstone project focused on combining creativity with crochet. My capstone driving question is, how can I learn valuable entrepreneurial skills by creating and selling crochet products? A little bit about me. I am a junior. This is my second year in FCCLA, and I plan to become a teacher in my future. My very favorite thing to do over the weekend is crochet, and that's what inspired my capstone project. My professional consultant is Tammy Cox. She is the owner of Yarned and Dangerous down on Main Street and has been the owner since 2024. She runs classes every Wednesday. You can hang out, have fun, enjoy, and learn new things along the way. She is also a real estate investor. A little bit about my capstone. My main goals were to learn how to read and write crochet patterns, as well as learn how to price my items accurately and sell them. I also wanted to learn how to expand my knowledge further. The only thing I knew walking into this capstone was a few basic stitches. So my timeline, I decided to do it through Unruler. So I could compile all my information and have it in a strategic timeline. I started this whole project in October of 2024 with creating a pattern. My pattern was designed for a crochet bead, which you have a little tiny one somewhere around floating there. And I decided to take it to the next level and wanted to learn how to price my items. Also in 2024, I got a grant from this program called Grip Tape, and I got to go shopping for yarn. I had to apply different math skills and submit receipts as proof of what I used them for. In December of 2024, I got to go to PCC and sell at their art walk. I also got to sell at the Self Expo in 2024 as well as 2025. In the 2025 Self Expo was my best and most successful experience, which I got $600 that I raised money on with all my projects. For knowledge and communication and communicating, I had to figure out what the best strategies were to put inside my pattern. I needed to make sure that there were a picture for steps, and I wanted to make sure that there was a list of materials provided so each person would know what they were walking into when completing this project. I wanted to also communicate with Mr. Summers as well as Tammy along my process. I asked Mr. Summers in 2024 and 2025 if I could sell at the Self Expo, and he agreed to both. I also had weekly meetings, update texts, and messages from Grip Tape about what my next steps were that I were going to be taking. I also had conversations between Tammy and myself about what I can improve on my capstone project with my pattern. My three math principles that I chose were Math Principle 4, Math Principle 5, and Math Principle 8. For Math Principle 4, Models with Mathematics, I had to apply for a grant called Grip Tape. I applied for a $250 grant, and I had to go through a 10-week course in order to get this grant. I had to have weekly meetings, Zoom meetings, with a mentor, and had to go and figure out what I would do and let them know what I would do with this grant. After receiving this grant, I went on a giant shopping spree. I had to also learn with my projects how I was going to price them, and I decided to break that down by finding how much it would cost to make one bee, looking at my hourly rates, as well as looking at the cost of materials. I decided to break these down into a spreadsheet. So you also have the spreadsheet right in front of you too if you want to take a look at that, but I also do have it on the screen. So I decided to look at how much yarn was in each skein. Then I took how many bee it took in each color to make that bee, divided that out to see how many bees I could make per color per skein. I also did the exact same thing for how much of safety eyes and fluff would needed for one bee. Then I took it a step further and looked at the cost of my materials. I looked at how much it cost for one skein and looked how many bees I can make out of that skein in order to find the cost of one bee with those materials. Then I took all of that information, compiled it, and added it up together and found my total cost of one bee, which ended up being $4.74. I then looked at it again. I was selling my bee for $5. Seems pretty reasonable for a little tiny bee until you break down the cost of your materials, and when it ends up to being 26 cents that I'm making is not a reasonable cost. I looked at it again and saw what I can be doing to improve my cost. I found the most valuable one would be to price it for $12 in order to be making $7.26. For Math Principle 5, using appropriate tools strategically. I had to use many tools along the way. I had to use a scale to weigh my fluff. I had to use a ruler to measure my yarn. I had to use charts to compile all my materials used. And I also had to use a crochet hook. Using a crochet hook is a tool because if you use the wrong size, you won't have the same amount of yarn required for that project and you would run into an error. For Math Principle 8, looks for and expresses regularity in repeated reasoning. When I looked at the Colorado minimum wage website, it said minimum wage is $14.81. In order to make half of minimum wage, which is $7.40, and with my cost of bee being $4.74, I would need it with my materials and labor to be $12.14 to be close to half of minimum wage. My trait and skill that I chose was tenacity and reflection. For tenacity, I went to PCC hoping that it was going to be a great experience, and it was, just because I got the opportunity to sell. I did not have a lot of traffic coming through, but I just kept persisting even though I didn't sell a lot. I learned I needed to go to multiple events to find the best strategies for my project. I can apply this by getting permission from Mr. Summers to sell at future self-expos. For reflection, I priced my pieces based off of size originally. I learned that by pricing them off of just size was not the most effective way, and I learned how to price my items and realized that I was very much underpricing myself. I can apply this in my future by calculating the price of each item and how much it takes for the cost of materials and labor, not just by the size of item. I learned many skills along the way. I learned how to price my items, read and write patterns, as well as learn how to create spreadsheets for myself. I learned what it takes to become an entrepreneur along the way, and some challenges that I had was even though I did not sell some of my projects, I kept persisting along the way. My call to action, try something new. It might be hard, it might be challenging, and even sometimes stressful, but in the end, you might even like it, might find something you really enjoy. Here are my table of contents, and I'd like to thank Tammy, Mr. Summers, Ms. Nieto, Mr. Tessie, and my family for everything that they did.
Many veteran organizations get a set amount of funds from either the state, federal, or both. In some cases, it's not enough. Like in this picture, 60% of these states have over 1,000 homeless veterans. So we asked ourselves,
how can we raise money to donate to veterans?
My name is Colton Godfrey. My pathway is security. Some of my hobbies that I do include running and doing any projects that involve working with my hands. The clubs and activities I do at school include cross country, track and field, JROTC rifle team and Raiders and drill team, as well as band, and my future aspirations are to enlist in the United States Navy.
hi, my name is Yaramata. My pathway is security. My interests is woodworking and working with my hands. My clubs and hobbies are the CCHS rifle team and JROTC. Internships I've taken is a CCHS woodshop, and my future aspiration is to enlist as of 15 November.
I'm Georgia Hill. My pathway is security. Some clubs and hobbies I do is I like to read, play video games. I'm a part of JROTC, and I'm also in all of the teams, and I like working out. My future aspirations is to enter one of the academies or to enlist into the Army.
Our professional consultant is Officer Ryan Chan. He is a current school resource officer at CCMS in Harrison. He is a retired Army veteran. The things he has helped us with in our capstone is helping with t-shirt designs, product selection, possible business partners, as well as just overall support and advice for our capstone.
To answer our driving question, we chose to pair up with the Bruce McCandless Vet Home to show support to not only our local veterans, but to those within the home by raising money for whatever they may need, as they can always use the extra funding. We chose to do this as there are many veterans not only in our community, but in our families who inspire us to do so, and we want to do this for them.
This slide is our entire timeline and process of our capstone. We started in March by discussing with Officer Chan about being a professional consultant. Our project really started off when we partnered with the Bruce McCandless Veterans Home on the 5th of May, and then after that we started designing products as well as further planning. On August 23rd was our first day of fundraising, and our project concluded on December 8th when we donated all of our proceeds to the Bruce McCandless Veterans Home. On the next few slides will be the 5 phases of our project.
So our first phase was the planning phase, which we did on a total of 19 occasions. This included things like meeting with our professional consultant and all of our other partners, emailing those people, and also planning the things that we wanted to design in the future.
And our second stage of our project was the designing stage. We had a total of 19 occasions where we met up to design our products. One of them being the bracelets, which you can see in front of you on your podiums, and 5 different sticker designs, which you can see on the screen, 2 logos, which are also on the screen, our poster, which you can see in the packet on Artifact C, and a t-shirt, which is also up there with one of you guys.
The third phase of our project was fundraising, which we did on 11 different occasions, whether that be going door-to-door fundraising or going to the many sporting events that we went to set up a table and sell our product.
The fourth phase was distribution. We did this during the many times we were fundraising as well, as when people bought the bracelets, we gave it to them then. And then we had one big distribution day where we met up and we packaged t-shirts, bracelets, and stickers, and then we went and actually hand-delivered them to the people who ordered them.
For our 5th and final stage of our capstone was the donation stage. We donated all of our money on December 8th to the Bruce McKenlis Vet Home during one of our weekly meetings and presented $1,740.25 and some extra product that we had on hand.
Our reading and writing slide, we demonstrated writing by sending many professional emails to Mr. Summers, Officer Chen, Ms. Autumn, Ms. D, Colonel Dorado, and Taya Fisher. We demonstrated reading by creating posters to advertise our project.
For communications, we communicated with local businesses around Canyon City to put up flyers to bring news to Canyon City about our project. We also fundraised at school events. We set up meetings with various people like our professional consultant and other partners that were for our capstone to discuss where we were at and any roadblocks that we were facing.
So the 3 math principles we chose were principle number 3, number 4, and number 5. Our first one is math principle number 3, constructs viable arguments and critiques the reasoning of others. For this principle, we decided to argue why working with Taya Fisher for the t-shirts was better than working with master printers. For the master printers pie chart, you can see the dark blue, and that is all cost. It would have been 80% cost and only 20% profit if we had bought all of our t-shirts from master printers. With Taya Fisher, if we bought all of our t-shirts from her, it would have been 52% profit and only 48% cost, which is why working with Taya Fisher was better and what we did. Math principle number 4, models with mathematics. We decided to model for this one how we change the diameter of our logos on our t-shirts depending on what sizing it was. For our back logo, it started with a 7-inch diameter with the base t-shirt size being a large t-shirt, as that is what the most people ordered. We then multiplied it by percentages depending on what size it was going to be to get the new diameter of the logo of the circle. We did this for as small as the small size of t-shirt and up to 2XL. We did the same thing with the front logo, and this one started with a 4-inch diameter. For math principle number 5, use the appropriate tools strategically, we decided to use mini graphs and pie charts to model many different things. On this slide, you can see the different pictures, which is actually our rough draft work of what went into creating these different charts and whatnot. On this slide, we have the different profits and costs of everything compared to each other's profits and costs. For the t-shirts, it ended up being a 48% profit and a 52% cost due to us having to get some t-shirts from master printers still. The bracelets was a 100% profit, which is that all blue one. And then for the stickers, it was about 95% profit and 5% cost. This one shows the profits and costs of everything compared to each other directly. As you can see by that bar graph up there, it's much bigger than the others, and that is our donation bar graph. It made up about 95% of the total money that we raised, and that pie chart just demonstrates a different way to show it on how much the donation money is actually eating away at the pie. And this last one shows the amount sold comparison, where we ended up selling a total of 95 stickers, and stickers were by far our most popular product.
The skills and traits we chose were civility and collaboration. We We demonstrated both of these by partnering with multiple organizations around town, planning many meetings with these organizations, and taking in professional and community feedback from those in the community. And we also learned how to communicate respectfully. And on the next slide are some evidence photos, emails showing our professional communication, and our group photo to show our collaboration.
We answer our driving question by the various ways we fundraise for the veterans. Early on in our project, we faced challenges with time management and communication, but as we progressed through the capstone, we improved drastically. Our project connects to our aspirations because we all plan to join the military in some shape or form.
With the information presented, we learned many ways to donate to veterans in our community. I want to encourage every member in the audience to ask themselves, how can I donate to veterans in my community?
Many people helped us during our capstone journey, and the main people were our capstone professional consultant, Officer Ryan Chan, the Bruce McCandless Veterans Home, our families, Miss D at Master Printers, Taya Fisher, and everyone in the community that donated or bought our products. And this is our table of contents. Thank you.
All right, hi, my name is Cedric Smith. I'm grateful for this opportunity to present to you guys for this scholarship competition. So I just wanted to start off with a quote from Rabindranath Tagore. I slept and dreamt that life was joy. I awoke and saw that life was service. I acted and behold, service was joy. That just really spoke to me as, I don't know, I just really agree that service is joy, and I just was grateful that in my capstone I was able to do some service because it really did bring me some joy. So my driving question was, how can I help give the community of Kenyon City an opportunity to receive free dental work? So this is the Kenyon Dental Opportunity. So like I said, my name is Cedric Smith. I'm part of the Science Healthway pathway. I was the captain of the boys varsity soccer team. I've also been a part of Encore and Madrigals and musical, being dance captain for Madrigals, or not Madrigals, but musical and Encore. But I also like to ski, and I was a part of Systems Go, and then I worked at Florence Family Dentistry. And one day I want to become an orthodontist or like a dentist. So this is kind of just my journey, my transcript. I'll open up this iCap journey real quick, or it should just be right there. So yeah, just like this kind of just shows a lot of that paperwork and just a lot of my field work that I had to go through and do with this. That's a flyer that I created to just reach out to get some patients for the day for my event. But yeah, just gonna continue on with the show. So my professional consultant was Joe Steiner. He was in the United Air Force in multiple positions, but he was mainly the Aerospace Medical Service Career Field Manager. He's also an operations manager and a managing partner of Personal Life Products. He got his education. He has a bachelor's in management, associates in light health, and education training management. And then he was also a professional manager certification is what he achieved. So my event. So I held a one-day event where we provided free dental work for those who could just really benefit from this opportunity. So like I said, our goal was just to make sure that everybody could get in and not have to worry about the costs, and that it's just for those who are maybe young adults or single mothers or those who just don't have dental insurance, so we can just help them afford a free dental opportunity. So my timeline, at first I had to reach out to my professional consultant, and then had to reach out to the dentist, get a dentist, and then after that I was able to start filling the schedule for the day, so I created a flyer that I was able to just send out to certain pools of people in the community that could really use this opportunity. I reached out to some schools if they had anybody in mind that could benefit from this. And then I also reached out to Sarah Fisher, who had connections to certain pools of people who could also benefit. And then I also created a post at one point to the public on Facebook with my flyer and information about it. I also reached out to some other dentists. They sadly declined. They either had like employability problems or just not time in their schedule. And then finally we were able to hold the event at Florence Family Dentistry. It was a huge success, and I was happy about it. So just knowledge and communication. So in going through this process, there's a lot of things that I had to communicate and make sure that we're getting across the board. As I was working with Florence Family Dentistry, I had to communicate what I was looking for and what I was trying to do. And then just going into it, as well as communicating with the patients and making sure that they know what they're getting themselves into and what they're going to be provided, and that they know where they're going. And then just as well as working with those others that I mentioned with my professional consultant and with Sarah Fisher. So I did that through messages, emails, and that flyer that I created. And so for the math principles that I'm going to go over, I have the first one, and the fourth, and the fifth. So for that first one, as you can see, this pie chart, through the research that I did, the number one reason why people don't go to the dental office is because of the cost or because they don't have insurance. So that's just a big reason why I wanted to do this, so that we can get people who can't always get into the dental office. Because when you don't get in, a little cavity could turn into a root canal, and then you end up owing more money than you should need to. The doctor agreed with that. And so on to the fourth, as you can see, I have this bar diagram. Just going over about how 30% of Florida Spanish Dentistry's patients just don't have dental insurance, so they're just paying straight out of their pocket, which can be hard, especially for those who are going from paycheck to paycheck. And then it's hard in the Fremont County, as we have a lot of poverty in Fremont County, and so I just thought this would be a really cool opportunity. And so lastly, this is just kind of some numbers that went over that day of dental work that we were able to do. We performed 90 procedures in that day, which kind of added up to about $7,000. And then with the dentist paying payroll to the employees, at the end of the day, it was pushing $8,000 of what went into this capstone. And then for my traits and skills that I want to go over, I have innovation and solution seeking. So for innovation, I had to think about the community's needs, like I said, about the poverty, about the dental insurance, and just being able to offer this opportunity of free dentistry to those who could just really benefit from it. And just also, how do I get those people to show up? So I created that flyer, like I mentioned, that you guys can see on the screen here, that I was able to pass out to pools of people who could, like I said, benefit from this opportunity, and just be able to get them to show up, and again, just getting it to everyone. At first, I didn't have as many patients as I would like, so I was just kind of keeping it up and keep reaching out. And when the day came, there's a family that got sick, so there's a few people who just weren't able to show up, and then so we were able to, the dentist and I were able to talk and just call some people that he knew of to get some people here could, like I said, just who could use this opportunity to get some free dental work done. So something that I learned from this is how to get people to show up to my event and that I'm putting on, but also a big one, the biggest one probably, is that the answer is always no until you ask, is what I found, because I did ask a lot of people and a lot of people said no, but eventually somebody did say yes, and I was just very grateful for that. Also, I just learned how to adapt on a larger level, on a way that doesn't just impact me, but impacted 16 other people in this event, and just making sure that it was able to happen and be successful and just be very effective. So something that's done for me is just getting that experience and creating events and have that confidence in doing it, but also that I'll be able to adjust when the day came. If somebody can't show up, how do I fill that in? And also just that advertising. I've never had to advertise for anything before, other than like maybe show card, but that's really easy. But it's just really cool to have this opportunity to grow in those ways. And just also knowing who to go to, because if I know who to go to, it makes the process a lot easier, and it would have not been possible on my own, as I can't do dental work on people. So solution seeking. Like I said, at first, I only had 2 people signed up for the free dental day, and that's after I sent out that first round of flyers to people. And so I came to the conclusion that I needed to make a post on Facebook, and I also needed to send it out to more pools of people. So that's when I reached out to Sarah Fisher, who had those connections in those type places. And then also looking for dentists to be a part of the event. I asked probably about 5 dentists, and most of them declined, but like I said, I was just very grateful that Florida Spanish Dentistry was able to agree to make this happen. So something that I learned is check in consistently, because if I wouldn't have checked in consistently, instead of providing free dentistry for 15 people, we would have only had 2. And that would have not been a very long day. But so also, there's many solutions to a single problem. It's not always going to be the first thing that you think of, so it's just about brainstorming and just finding out the solution and that we can make it happen. Also just going, like I kind of talked about it earlier, going to others is the difference maker. And doing that, the event was possible with the whole dentistry going in. And then, so something this has done for me is that it'll change the way how I look at problems. It'll help me just kind of work through them more and find the best and most effective one, but also, like on that next point, just to be able to learn to lean on others, and together that we can just have the best solution for the problem. And so in my project, it was a huge success. Like I said, we almost had about $7,000 worth of dental procedures done for those who could really benefit from it the most. Somebody talked to me afterwards and just told me how grateful they were for this opportunity because they just can't afford dentistry. And something that I learned from this was able to communicate efficiently, but also in a professional setting, and talking to a dentist and talking to their staff, and as well as just talking to patients in that day going on. Some challenges, like I said, was the scheduling and getting the patients, and then getting a dentist. But we were able to work it all out and make it a successful event. And something that I learned from this is that I can, as long as I stay persistent and I learn to problem solve, I can just really get this all done. So, and then a big advantage to doing this was that in doing my capstone with dentistry, it gave me some just on-field experience because I do want to go to dental school and I would love to pursue orthodontics, but dentistry is that first step for me. And then, so I would just like call you guys to brush and floss twice a day, invest in your oral health by doing the little things, but just also support the community where you can. And I'd like to give some acknowledgments to Joe Steiner, Dr. David Smith, the staff of Flores Family Dentistry, the patients, and Sarah Fisher, as well as the administration of Lincoln Elementary and Canyon City High School nurses.
My name is Ben, and this is my woodworking journey. First off, I'd like to start with my driving question for this project, which was how can I grow my woodworking skills and start a business? A little bit about myself, I'm Ben Slaybaugh. I'm interested in construction, woodworking, and engineering. I'm in the STEM field, and my interests are BMX, volleyball, and rock climbing. I had a work study, and I'm currently employed at AM Contracting, and in my future, I plan on going into the trades and getting some sort of apprenticeship or continuing to work at AM Contracting. I have my OSHA 10 certificate and my SolidWorks mechanical design certificate. This is my professional consultant, Benjamin Guggens. He owns a construction and remodeling business, and he graduated from the University of Maryland. He helped a lot with the business aspect of my projects, such as how to budget, how to run employees, and things like that. We talked a lot about woodworking techniques, like using epoxy, using exotic woods, and certain projects that he's built that he enjoyed. He talked about sustainability and how to be successful as an individual, and he gave me a lot of general life advice. A summary of my project: I built a series of woodworking projects, and I plan to stay underneath the $500 budget. After the projects were completed, I donated and sold some of them to the school and community. And my two main goals for the project were to explore as many types of woodworking and art that I could, and to learn the skills needed to start my own business. These are some of my favorite projects that I completed. Most of them are kind of like art, decorative type. You can see at the bottom, I designed and donated the new foam gel for the school. And here are some of the other projects, plus 1 or 2 dozen more that I did not include on these slides.
Wow.
A timeline of my project. In January, I started brainstorming and started all of my paperwork. And by May, I had started choosing all of the projects that I was going to make. And in late May through August, which was a period of about 5 months, I did the majority of my field work. In September, I started donating and selling some of my items, and October, I had my last meeting with my professional consultant, and then I finished my presentation. In November, I had my practice presentations. This is a process that I came up with throughout my project. It's like a 6-step process that kind of helped me designing all of my projects. First, I would research project ideas. I mostly used Pinterest for that, and then I would design and sketch a blueprint or a layout for each project. I used SketchUp for that, and then I would build the project. I used a lot of YouTube tutorials on certain setups for saws and like that, and certain techniques. And then after each project was completed, I would reflect on my mistakes, if anything needed to be changed or improved, and then I would apply the changes or rebuild. There were a lot of projects that I wasn't very happy with, so I completely scrapped them and started again. And then afterwards, I would evaluate the finished product and sell or donate the project. And I sold some of my projects on Facebook Marketplace. For my reading and writing, I had a lot of woodworking classes and carpentry classes that kind of set the basis. I had a lot of knowledge building in those classes that taught me what I needed to do. And I had a lot of communication, as you can see, over text. I had a lot of communication in between. I had some projects where I would have to talk to customers, and I would send them a couple questions about what they wanted from me. As for oral communication, I had a lot of text with the consultant, and I was in constant communication with Mr. Carpillo and Mr. Addington, which were the two woodworking and carpentry teachers that I worked with. And I was in constant communication with all of the customers. There were a lot of projects that the customer came to me with a project that they wanted, and as the project developed, they would tell me what they wanted changed or design choices and things like that. And then I was in constant communication with my capstone advisors as well as my classmates. They gave me a lot of advice on certain things to change and what to improve. My math principles, I chose making sense of problems to persevere in solving them, using appropriate tools strategically, and attending to precision. For making sense of problems and persevering in solving them, this is one of my projects where I used epoxy. And for epoxy, you have to keep it very, very specific between 72 and 74 degrees Fahrenheit, as well as you can only pour a depth of 1/4 inch up to 1/8 of an inch deep. And I had a problem where I had poured too deep and the mixture got way too hot, and you can see on the left that it developed a lot of bubbles. In order to solve this, I had to decrease the temperature of the reaction, and for that I thinned out some of my pour. I poured some of it off, and then I also put it in a cooler in order to cool down the whole project. For using appropriate tools strategically, I had a graph that I used for all of my prices. As you can see on there, there's all of the wood, all of the stain, paint, and things like that, door hinges that I had to use. And as I went through my projects, I could see how much I was spending and how much I had left. It helped a lot with staying within budget as well as using cost-effective materials. If there was a certain project that I wanted to spend a little extra on, or say like some exotic woods, I could use my graph and proportion that out specifically. And it also helped me to compare prices over time to see how much of my budget I actually had left. And I can apply this to the real world. It helps a lot with decision making and helping me see the facts about like how much I'm spending and budgeting and things like that, as well as optimization of projects and things like that. For attending to precision, precision is very, very important when it comes to woodworking. You have to use a lot of blueprints or layouts, and you have to be very aware of material quantities so that you're not, especially when you're working with expensive materials, you're not using way too much or spending too much. And you have to have decent hand-eye coordination so you don't cut yourself or get injured when working with a saw. And you have to have good knowledge of wood properties because you can't cut into knots or cut the wood against the grain and things like that. Every measurement, cut, and joint must be exact, and very, very small errors can make a huge impact on your final product. For my trait and skill, I used innovation and solution seeking. For innovation, I used creativity to develop new ideas, and I used a lot of critical thinking and innovation to bring those ideas to fruition. I learned that creativity often comes from stepping outside of your comfort zone, taking risks, and learning from your mistakes. And I can apply it by using an innovative approach to future projects and to approach them with originality. For solution seeking, when encountering issues with projects, I researched a lot of different techniques to fix the problem. I learned that there's always more than one way to solve a problem if I stay patient and use my resources properly. And I can use it by approaching future projects with an open mindset instead of frustration. My lessons learned, I faced quite a few challenges throughout my projects. There were a lot of last-minute changes. I had an unexpected change with my project advisor, and I had to completely scrap my capstone and restart. I had a lot of time management throughout my project, as I had certain projects that were month-long or multi-month long, and I learned that no problem is ever too small and that I have to keep moving forward even when I come against hard problems. I learned that I need to be able to adjust to new changes, learn from each challenge, and use these traits and skills to be successful in my future. This is a quote that I came up with, which is become a maker. I think it's very important because I don't think there's enough people, especially when it comes to hands-on, that are stepping outside of their comfort zone and trying new things. For my acknowledgements, there's a lot of people that helped me along this journey. Mr. Carpello, the carpentry teacher, all my classmates, Mr. Wiley and Dorado, which were my 2 advisors, and Ben Guggens, my professional consultant. Thank you for watching my project, and thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Ralph Waldo Emerson once said, "Some books leave us free and some books make us free. Hopefully, Clash will be the latter." My driving question for this project was, how will publishing my own book affect my and my community's views on young authors and censorship? Hi, my name is Rex Hansen. I'm a senior here at CCHS. I'm in the Arts, Hospitality, and Education pathway, and I would consider myself to be incredibly involved. I do Winter Guard, Speech and Debate, Creative Writing Club, and as much band as I can. In the future, I would like to be a clinical psychologist to be able to provide talk therapy as well as research in the field of psychology. I also would very much like to be an author, as my project itself kind of exemplifies. And I also strive for independence as a person. As for my hobbies, I love art and literature and everything to do with it. I draw, paint, craft, read, and do everything creative I can get my hands on. I'm also extremely interested in the horror genre, which kind of translates into everything I read, write, draw, and play. Right here is my ICAP graduation journey. All right, here are some pictures exemplifying the things I said on the previous slides. For Pathway and Aspirations, I have proof of passing my internship, which was at the Upper Arkansas Area Council of Governments. Then for interests and hobbies, I have some arts and music classes that I've passed, a drawing I did last summer, and some writing of mine. And then for clubs and extracurriculars, I have a picture of the 2025-2026 speech and debate team, a picture of the 2025 Winter Guard, and a picture of the 2025 marching band. My professional consultant was Brianna Scaleri, the 7th grade CCMS science teacher and the former CCHS speech and debate coach. I chose her to help with this project because she's helped edit my writing through speech and debate before, and she knows how to be a good storyteller, as well as knowing what an audience may enjoy when it comes to storytelling. We met my sophomore year when I first joined speech and debate, and I was honestly kind of terrified of her. She helped me a lot since then, and not just with speech and debate. I am deeply grateful that she helped me with this passion project of mine. Here are some screenshots with email conversations between her and myself, which are on a ruler if necessary. For this project, I wrote the first few chapters of a book handling controversial topics like war and queer love, then put the prologue on a website that I created, and surveyed my community before publishing the site, then did research to create a hypothesis on how publishing this book would affect my community and hopefully the world. The purpose of this project was to destigmatize young authors and take a step towards ending unjust censorship, with a goal of putting my work out into the world. And as I grew up as an avid reader and with a very big passion for writing, I believed myself to be very qualified for this project. So I first started in 2022 with my introduction to Capstone and my pre-search paper. I knew immediately that this was going to be my topic. I continued in 2023 with finalizing my idea for writing and fully deciding my topic before starting writing in 2024. I worked on writing the entirety of 2024, and in the first quarter of 2025, I published a survey and tried to survey my community about controversial topics like war and queer love, to then compare that data with my own research on the internet to create a hypothesis on how my book would affect my community. And then, my timeline. Nope. There we go. Here are some screenshots proving my timeline. I have my pre-search paper scores in 2022, which I would like to say are pretty high, if I do say so myself. In 2023, I have my topic proposal and my driving question drafts. In 2024, I have the prologue to my book and proof that it's on my website. And then in 2025, I have a screenshot of how many results my survey got and a link to the website itself. Prologue, website. So, my project was perfect for reading and writing, since it's entirely reading and writing based. For knowledge, I have, again, my pre-search paper scores and a portion of the first chapter that I wrote, as well as my professional consultant letter. These show knowledge in reading and writing because it exemplifies being able to write well and effectively. And the first and last especially show knowledge because you need to have the correct knowledge to know what you're doing and get those high scores or get what you need. Then for communication, I have screenshots of conversations between myself and Bree, where she gave advice for my survey, as well as my response, and an email of me asking for critiques on the outline for my book. Communication was also an essential part of my project. Every writer needs critiques if you want to have a good product. A good example for knowledge aspect was, again, the professional consultant letter, because, again, you have to have that background knowledge on not only your project, but how your professional consultant can help and how they might answer so you can create that letter to fit the situation. The communication aspect, I have, again, more screenshots of conversations over email, which exemplifies effective communication. As well as I had a meeting with a local author named Tammy Hartrum, and Bree also attended that meeting and very graciously took notes for me. All right, math doesn't necessarily come easy in a project almost entirely writing-based, but I did overcome that, and I have chosen math principles 1, 3, and 5, which are make sense of problems to persevere in solving them, constructs viable arguments and critiques the reasoning of others, and uses appropriate tools strategically, respectively. First is 1, make sense of problems to persevere in solving them. Our problem, not just mine, is censorship. Censorship, more often than not, is used to omit messages from history, especially in literature, which is most often in the form of book bans. First Book, which is a nonprofit or dedicated to quality and quantity of education, says that the most commonly challenged books have or contain LGBTQ+ topics or themes. And a very close second was racial or ethnic diversity. Then with then with Book Riot, which was a journal that promotes blogs on books and studies on literature, I have a graph that depicts the percentages of topics banned or challenged books, which is a very serious issue. As you can see, it's the highest one, you can't read it, but it does say queer topics, and then the very close second is, again, those racial and ethnic diversities. Like I said, this is a very serious issue, and it's not only important to me because of that, but it's important to me because I fall into some of the categories that people would ban books over. Then for communication, I have some of my survey results. The first one up here is on how people who took the survey view the topics like war and queer love, where the majority said that they would apply them to real life and found them to be relatable. Then this second chart is how survey takers responded to appropriateness level when introducing these topics to children, where again the majority said that these kinds of topics should be introduced to children early. Next is number 3, constructs viable arguments and critiques the reasoning of others. As I showed on the last slide, there are many different opinions on censorship and book bans, which topics are appropriate for children. A good example is the difference between Moms for Liberty and the American Library Association. Moms for Liberty is a very political group that is very openly anti-queer, anti-LGBT, and American Library Association did a survey of parents in their local area that showed that parents want their children to be exposed to these topics. And in my opinion, there is a very good explanation for this. Moms for Liberty is a very conservative kind of group where they kind of don't want to educate themselves on the topics that they're so very against. Whereas, in my opinion and my experience, parents are very want to learn what their children are learning. Finally is number 5, uses appropriate tools strategically. The good thing about a project that takes place almost entirely online is that there are a plethora of tools to use, mainly Google Forms, Wix, which is what's holding up my website right now, and genuinely a lot. I created a poster online, which helped me do my survey. Google Forms helped me visualize my data, and Wix is holding up the majority of my project.
Good evening. Thank you everyone for your attendance tonight. My name is Isabel Oriana, and my capstone is titled Kick It Forward, kind of like Kick It Forward, because my capstone project is much like my cheesy pun, very motivational and centered around food. You can also see that my graphic here on this first slide is actually my own personal company's business logo. It's called Cake My Day, so as you can see, I really like the cake puns. Okay, so starting off with my driving question, it is how can I teach my younger peers about a capstone in a captivating and exciting way while gaining knowledge about my future? So a little bit of background about me. I'm currently on the STEM pathway at CCHS, and a lot of my hobbies are centered around chemistry, math, engineering, and of course baking. I also participated in FCCLA, speech and debate, the National Honor Society, and one of my proudest achievements is that I was an intern and employee with Lember Incorporated, our owner's representative firm for the construction happening at the high school. And then I also have just a little list of all of my certifications and licenses that I've obtained through the school's programs. Now I'd like to introduce you to my professional consultant. Her name is Savannah Hollywell. She is the owner and manager of Sally's Bakery in Main Street. I don't know if you've been there. If you haven't, you should definitely check it out. She's wonderful. I sought her out because she has management expertise and because she manages Sally's Bakery with her family. It's a very small operation, but then she also manages a company based in California. And so I just really wanted her input because she has so much experience in this field that I'm in right now. So moving on to my summary. I knew from the beginning I wanted to incorporate my pre-existing business, so I connected with Savannah in order to ask her questions about how she runs her company so I could adjust and grow my own professional model. However, I felt like my project was missing something, and I wanted to share and provide for my community. So I prepared a presentation to give to the Harrison class of 2029 while they were still 8th graders last year about what exactly to expect from the capstone process and what I had done with my project so far. My main purpose and goal of my project had shifted from hoping to grow my own personal business to wanting to be a support beam and a helping hand to all of my younger peers. Now moving on to my timeline. From September to December of 2024, I completed my field work, such as my pre-search paper, which is actually in my pamphlet that I handed you just a minute ago, and my topic proposal, my parent consent form, and my plan approval. Once all that was taken care of, in January of 2025, I reached out to Savannah. This is when all of my communication happened with her, and she also signed my professional consultant form. So, and actually, on the pamphlet that I handed you, there is a document of questions and answers that I have for her, which is like every part of communication that I had with her and everything that I had learned from her and wanted to ask her in general. In February of 2025, I met Mr. Sam Weiss. He is the vice principal at Harrison at our CCHS instructional program review. And I pitched my presentation idea, and then I had the pleasure to set up a time and date over email with him. And then on April 18th of 2025, I gave my presentation to the 8th graders at Harrison Middle School. And then from May all the way to September, so all the way to my senior year of 2025, I completed and revised my final capstone presentation for my presentation date on October 1st of 2025. And there's just a continuation of my timeline. Okay, now let's take a look at how I use reading and writing. So the biggest piece of evidence that I have for this is my research paper because it's based around food safety and the catering industry in general. This was really helpful for me because it helped me learn how to professionally format a lot of my pieces and how to just really adjust my writing style to more professional and more adult, if you could say. And then I use these skills to formulate professional emails with Savannah and Mr. Weiss. Now, moving on to communication. Communication was a very big aspect of my project. I learned ways to professionally interact with professional adults and with my younger peers through countless emails and practice presentations. Okay, so now my math principles. The ones that I have chosen are numbers 1, 3, and 4. Just let me know if you need me to pause for a moment. So my first math principle is make sense of problems and perseveres in solving them. So the problem that I identified was that students were confused about Capstone with only having the rubric that was on our CCHS website. So my solution was to demonstrate how a capstone can be used to your advantage and simplified the steps into bullet points rather than large blocks of text. My graph here shows the word count comparison from my slideshow from the CCHS rubric, and it's also in my pamphlet that I gave you. And then here is just a little comparison photo between the CCHS rubric and what mine looked like. Okay, for my second math principle number 3, which is constructs viable arguments and critiques the reasoning of others. I researched what makes a presentation effective for children ages 12 to 14. This way, my presentation would appeal to my audience much better. I put all of my findings into a bar graph and showing the amount of children who appreciated things, which I put on here bright colors, a reward, consistency, organization, and questions, whether that's me asking them questions or having them ask me questions. And then, continuing with this math principle, you can see right here, I also made cake pops for them for like a little thank you gift, which is my reward. And then on the right side, you can see that it's eye-catching, it's organized, and it's very consistent. Okay, for my third and final math principle, which is number 4, which is models with mathematics, I used this spreadsheet to compare ingredient lists of cost from 3 different cake pop recipes in order to choose the most affordable option, but not sacrificing the taste or the quality. This was a really good opportunity for me to learn more about using spreadsheets in a professional way, just because I hadn't really used them before, so it was really nice to kind of discover what else could be done with spreadsheets. Okay, and then moving on to traits and skills. The trait and skill pair that I chose was integrity and leadership. Okay. I believe that I showed integrity because I demonstrated how I honestly feel about the Capstone project and how my experience may have benefited me and my presentation to the 8th graders. I made sure to express that this project is it's built on hard work and everything that is what it means to be a high schooler. You have to put in the work. You can't just put it into AI and that's your project. And then for leadership, I learned how to present in an honest way, but also an encouraging way. I believed I can apply integrity to college essay writing, resumes, future presentations, and being a benevolent and good-hearted person. For leadership, I completed my capstone with the goal that my younger peers could be confident that they could reach their full potential with their capstone and high school in general. I learned that being a leader means inspiring and pushing others to reach their goals and pursue their ideas. And then here are just my artifacts right here. They're also all pictured in the pamphlet that I handed. So I really wanted to just accentuate what I have put in my capstone, the presentation I gave to the 8th graders about integrity and leadership. And then I also put my slide there for how to ask for help, because I think it really just shows that I was really not worried, but I was encouraging them to just reach out if they needed it. So I believe I learned how to be myself while pursuing my passion for helping others. I also learned how to communicate with anyone, especially as an introvert. This lesson was so valuable to me. I also learned how our school's skills and traits play a major role in becoming the absolute best version of myself as a student, mentor, colleague, and person. My call to action for all of you here tonight is to find ways to combine your personal interests and provide a lesson to others through your own passions while assisting those who may need your help. And I just want to thank everyone on this list so much because I couldn't have done it without everyone on this list. They all played a very important role. And I want to say thank you also to you guys for showing up and being the support system tonight. So thank you so much.
Words are power, poetry out loud. Maya Angelou once said, words mean more than what is set down on paper. It takes the human voice to infuse them with a deeper meaning. And I think this quote perfectly encapsulates what my capstone is. The question that drove me throughout my capstone was, how can I authentically convey a poet's intention while expressing my own message? A little bit about me. My name is Kenta Farmer, and I love anything reading, writing, and public speaking. I'm in clubs such as FBLA and Speech and Debate and Link Crew. I like these clubs because they allow me to get to meet new people and explore my interests. I do classes such as AP Gov and Politics, Engineering and Design, and art classes. And all these classes were very beneficial during my capstone project because they taught me how to analyze and dig deeper into what I was doing. I am in the business pathway and I want to be a lawyer. My professional consultant is Brianna Scoleri, and she is the 7th grade science teacher over at CCMS. I picked Bree to be my professional consultant because she has immense experience in public speaking, and she was my speech and debate coach for a little bit. Poetry Out Loud is a really big deal nationally across the United States, and it even made it onto the news. Here's a little clip.
A poetry competition for high schoolers is a chance for them to flex their words and shake off the nerves that can come with an audience. And there are scholarships and prizes on the line. Our Byron Reed stopped by.
Icy fields. Is water flowing in the tank?
Poetry is more than words.
Poetry is an art form.
Poetry Out Loud is a national spoken word competition that happens across America. I made it to state in Poetry Out Loud both my freshman and sophomore year. Although my capstone is on Poetry Out Loud, it specifically focuses on my poem selection. For Poetry Out Loud, you get 3 poems. The first one's a freebie, the second one is 25 lines or fewer, and the third one is one that is older than the 20th century. I wanted to focus on my difference in poem selections for my freshman and sophomore year. My timeline. So Poetry Out Loud, you audition for districts in end of January, and then you figure out if you make it to state at the end of February, and you attend state at spring break in March. And that timeline looks the same my freshman and sophomore year. And then I did the actual slideshow and paperwork aspect of my capstone August of 2025. For reading and writing, I made sure to research my poets and understand the catalyst behind their work. Because Poetry Out Loud has a forum of poets all the way from Shakespeare to Amanda Gorman, you're looking at works in different languages and from different time periods, so it's super important to understand why the authors wrote these poems, and it can be something as simple as a death in the family to a political movement that's going on. And since you pick these poems and you're reciting them, I thought it was very important to dig deeper into who the poets were and what their poems were about. I use things such as lit charts in my English classes to help me do this, and I chose to do this because I wanted to learn how to analyze and just get to know people and works of art even better. For oral communication, I worked with my professional consultant and the Poetry Out Loud organization. They were very nice and had a bunch of resources for their contestants. There was even a Google Drive filled with pre-recorded messages by Colorado poet laureates and even our judges that were giving us just things that they are looking for when judging a poetry competition. I use email, Zoom, and I stayed up to date with my Google Calendar and my emails as state for Poetry Out Loud started to approach. The math principles I used during my capstone were 4, 6, and 7. The first math principle I use is models with mathematics. Because Poetry Out Loud's in Denver, Colorado, I had to go a day earlier since they highly suggest contestants who don't live in the Denver area drive up, and then we perform on the next Monday. So I had to buy pay my hotel fee, buy food, and then gas. My second math principle is attends to precision. For Poetry Out Loud, you get graded on many things, and one of them is body language. And you are graded on a scale of 1 to 6, and body language counts for 1/5 of your total score. When I was a freshman, I realized a lot of kids that are placing higher were kids who use their body to perform their poems. It wasn't just straight memorization. So my sophomore year, I decided to incorporate small things such as acting like I'm putting on a mask and taking off a mask for my poem, We Wear the Mask by Paul Laurence Dunbar. And my third math principle is looks for and makes use of structure. Since my capstone is very English heavy, I had to look into the actual words of my poem. There's actually a structure for tempo, and that formula is total number of words divided by total time in minutes is equal to words per minute. And this is very prominent in works such as Shakespeare, who uses iambic pentameters, and even Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech. All very recognizable and noticeable just because of the way that they are spoken and written. The trait and skill I chose was agency and empowerment. I felt agency was very important in my capstone because I took advantages of opportunities that were presented to me. Poetry Out Loud is an opportunity presented to the whole high school, but I was one of few that actually went out and took that opportunity, and it just introduced me to a whole different world. I recognize that when I take opportunities that are available to me, I can build on what I already know to acquire more knowledge. And I will continue to keep seizing and seeking opportunities as I continue on with my future. This is actually a clip from the documentary that was filmed my freshman year at Poetry Out Loud about me talking about why I joined Poetry Out Loud. So I started speech and debate actually this year, and I started to watch my friends do poetry as a little unit in speech. And I started to get an interest, which I've always kind of had in poetry. And then I heard that our school was involved in Poetry Out Loud, and I was like, why not? Let's try it. And some of my friends decided to sign up for it too, and I ended up making it here. My name is Keta Farmer, and I will be performing the poem, and you can find the rest of the documentary on YouTube. I felt very empowered while doing my capstone because I realized that I could use my poems to encourage others and deliver a message. Since you're using other people's words, there are messages hidden in those words, and it was up to me to pick 3 poems that had a clear and precise message that I could deliver to my audience. My sophomore year, the message I went with was perseverance, and I picked the poems Do Not Go Gentle Into Thy Good Night, We Wear the Mask, and Invictus. And I realized that the more passionate and intentional I was with my words and my actions, it caused my audience to be more drawn into my performance. And I can apply this by just continuing to get to know others and understanding that sometimes the words that they're saying is not who they are, and just digging deeper into like who other people are and getting to know them on a deeper level. For my lessons learned, when I reflect back on my capstone, I'm just overall very proud. I feel like I've grown a lot from my freshman year, and Poetry Out Loud has truly helped me become more confident with public speaking. Some challenges I faced while doing my capstone was there were some older languages in the poems that I chose, and because of that, I had to kind of learn what those words meant and how to even pronounce some of them. I can connect my capstone into my day-to-day life by just recognizing that I will have to continue to speak publicly in front of people, and that I can choose by my own choice to go and speak to people and use my voice to make change. My call to action is take advantage of opportunities that are presented to you, listen and learn from others, and use your voice. Thank you.
Pablo Picasso once said, the meaning of life is to find your gift, and the purpose of life is to give it away. For my capstone, I completed the project, Painted Shoes. My driving question was, how can I impact students in my community by using my artistic abilities? Hi, I'm Zophia Cohen, and I'm in the Arts, Hospitality, and Education pathway. I love traveling and want to travel more, and I also love to bake. I love dancing, and I've been dancing for a very long time, as well as playing volleyball. I plan to go to college and hope to pursue a degree in sign language and one day become a sign language interpreter. My professional consultant was Jonalee DiOrio. She's the owner of Bubba's Sporting Goods, and she has a degree in exercise science and health degree. She's in the consumer products business, She has active involvement within the community and has done multiple fundraisers where proceeds are donated. For the summary of my capstone, I hosted multiple silent auctions where anybody within the community could bid on a shoe. Once winners were chosen, they got to pick the shoe size, the colors, and the design they wanted. I would then paint the shoes and deliver them myself. The funds raised were then used to buy new shoes for students within the community. With this project, I aimed to grow my artistic abilities while also supporting my community. Through this, I built on lessons from previous projects to help with the projects that are moving forward and to make a positive impact. For my timeline and process, I painted my first pair of shoes for myself in June 2023. All my family loved them so much, in December 2023, I painted 3 pairs of shoes for family members. Over the summer, me and my mom came up with the idea for this as my capstone. We confirmed the idea with my capstone advisor and I began paperwork. I also found my professional consultant in January and got everything set up by the end of February. I began my first auction in March and sold my first pair of shoes, and after I sold my first pair of shoes, I began my second auction. I sold the second shoes, and while I was working on the second shoes, I also began working on a pair of Blossom shoes for the new Blossom Queen. In May, I finished the Blossom shoes and was able to give them to the new Crown Blossom Queen, and I sold my third pair of shoes. Once I finished all my shoes, in May 2025, I completed my last 2 auctions of September 2025. By the end of September 2025, I contacted all the schools, bought the shoes for the students, and donated them out. For knowledge and communication, for reading and writing, I had to make business cards, multiple posters, I had to create a Google site and create multiple auction forms. For communication, I had to communicate with my professional consultant, with the school staff for advertising within the school, communication with the Blossom Pageant director, and I also had to communicate with the elementary school teachers. Within your packet, there is a picture. The first page has my poster. I created 2, one with more information so that way when people came up they could read, and then one that gave easier to access to the website so people could find my website, and you also have the small business cards which I would hand out. For my math principles, I did math principle 1, math principle 4, and math principle 5. For math principle 1, make sense of problems to persevere in solving them. I had to work through multiple problems, especially within the website and the form to bid on. They sometimes lacked information or wouldn't open. There was multiple times I got a text from somebody saying, hey, I'm trying to bid, but I can't access it, or somebody didn't understand what was going on, so I had to find ways to make it better. Within the packet, there's a picture of what the sheets looked like that they looked on, so you could see what the current bid was, so you could do an up bid, so everybody could stay up to speed. For Math Principle 4, Models with Mathematics, I used spreadsheets to lay out costs and money usage for my grant. I had to show where all the money was going and how it was being used. I also had to use receipts of how much money each shoe was to analyze how much money was being spent and earned. On the sheet you can see there was the spreadsheet, and it shows everything that I used the grant money for, whether it was the paint, whether it was the shoe, even the paper that I used posters for. You can also see the picture of the shoe that I bought. Everybody got the same shoe for the same price, just different designs. For Math Principle 5, uses appropriate tools strategically. I use various tools such as creating a website, multiple spreadsheets, and various forms. I also use the knowledge of others a lot too to help me to make educated decisions. I don't know a whole lot about handling money or business side of this going into it, so I used the knowledge of others, specifically my parents, helped me handle the money to make sure I was doing it responsibly, so that way when the grant money was being used, it was transparent so nobody had questions of where it was going. You can also see the picture for Math Principle 5, which shows the money and where it went. Traits and skills, innovation, and solution seeking. What I did was I created new original designs for each auction to challenge myself creatively. I didn't want to do the same design for every auction. I wanted to make sure I pushed myself and didn't just take the easy route. I learned that trying new approaches actually created more unique ideas. I, at one point, got stuck in a rabbit hole that these were the only designs I could do, and I had to find new ways so that way I could come up with more unique designs, not just the same ones over and over. This taught me to think creatively instead of choosing the easy solution. For solution seeking, I overcame many challenges by learning what worked and what didn't work in the auctions. I learned that identifying the exact problem is key to finding the solution. This helps me apply in the future because sometimes you have to look deeper because the solution isn't always surface level. For my lessons learned, this project taught me business skills and boosted my confidence and motivation. This answered my driving question because it helped me grow as an artist while giving back to my community. One of the major challenges was getting the bids, so I had to find new ways to promote my capstone, especially near the end. Once I had done almost all of them, I struggled to find people, so I had to find new ways to promote. In the future, this capstone showed me that I want to continue to help others while I want to continue in the future. So my call to action is help those in need in a way that can also be fulfilling to you. In the end, I made $1,100 and was able to help 30 students within the school district. I received thank you cards from the students, which made me definitely appreciate that project and be able to help students because I saw firsthand how it impacted them. At the back of your packet, you can see some of my favorite designs I made, and you can also see the thank you cards that I received from the students. For my acknowledgements, I want to thank John Lee Carochi, my professional consultant, my parents, multiple staff members within the school district, and elementary school principals who I communicated with to get the shoes distributed. Thank you.
Okay, my name is Maddie Miley, and for my capstone project, I did an international travel scholarship for Canyon City High School students. Okay, so my hook. These are some pictures from my trip. I got to travel with EF, which stands for Education First. It is a travel company that the school goes through for the international trips that students get to go on. In the summer of 2023, I got to go on one of these trips to Scandinavia, and it truly changed my view on the world and made me a better person. I learned a lot from that experience, and I got to try new foods, and I traveled without my family, so it was a super eye-opening experience for me. These are some pictures from my trip. The first one is the original Little Mermaid statue in Copenhagen, Denmark, so the statue that inspired the movie The Little Mermaid. And then the one in the middle is my favorite picture that I took. It's the famous colorful Main Street in Copenhagen, Denmark, taken from a boat in the water. And then the picture on the right is the best food I ever ate, which was pork schnitzel in Grana, Sweden. On our way from Copenhagen to Stockholm, we were on our bus and we stopped in a small town called Grana in Sweden, where this local family let us into their hotel. They were friends with our local tour director, and they let us into their hotel and they gave us a home-cooked meal. And then Grana is the origin place of candy canes, which is why we got to stop there. So we got to see how candy canes were made. Our superintendent, Adam Hartman, went on one of these trips through EF as well, and I got the opportunity to talk to him about his experience. And something I pulled from speaking with him was a quote that says, "To be able to be a part of experiential learning and actually be in the environment where you're learning." Wow, super powerful, so powerful. That was him talking about Finland's educational programs. So my driving question was, how can I convince CCHS students to travel internationally through EF tours by alleviating the financial burdens? So a little bit about me. My name is Maddie Miley. I'm in the business leadership pathway. I'm the girls volleyball manager. I am a tenor drummer in marching band. I am the stage manager for thespians. I'm in student council and link crew. My passions are traveling, music, and marching band. I did my internship through the school at the St. Cloud Hotel, where I now have a part-time job as the front desk. And then I aspire to be an international traveler when I'm older. So a little bit about my professional consultants. I had two. Both of them work through EF up in Denver. Kathleen is a global education consultant and has been for 2 years in northern Colorado Springs in Pueblo, and she's a Colorado native. Heather is an accomplished educational partnerships manager who believes that people learn best through experimental learning. And she also was an English teacher, and so she loves getting the chance to open kids' eyes through the world of education. So summary of my capstone, what I did, I created a scholarship for students wanting to go on the international trips through the school to apply to and win. The purpose was to help alleviate some of the financial burden and educate kids to travel internationally. My goal was to raise enough money to cover 1/4 to 1/2 of a student's trip. Some background information is I went on one of these trips to Scandinavia through Canyon City High School in the summer of 2023. And I remember how hard it was to try to get so much money in such a short period of time. And I believe that international travel is beneficial in many different ways, and everyone should get a chance to experience it at least once in their life. My timeline. So this is my resume and pre-search paper, but I started off by brainstorming some ideas of my capstone and what I wanted to do. I originally came up with the idea of creating a long-lasting scholarship for students to be able to apply to year after year to try to get money to go on one of these trips. And then that ended up falling through, and so we ended up doing just a scholarship for this year for students to apply to. And I got in contact with my professional consultants through Mrs. Curl, who works with Kathleen because she is the one who set up the tours for our school. And she got me in contact with her, and we came up with a couple more ideas. And then I got in contact with Mr. Hartman, and we talked about different organizations and community members who I could talk to see if they'd be willing to sponsor and to donate money for this experience. And then this is one of my emails, some of my emails to some of the community members and organizations that Mr. Hartman set me up with to set up a meeting to discuss a pitch and discuss what I wanted to do. I also worked with my professional consultants to create a pitch to present to these community members about what I wanted to do. In this process, I created a promotional video for my scholarship using Premiere Pro, where I took all kinds of clips of different things from my trip and then some other things to create a video to try to convince kids to travel internationally and to inform them of the scholarship opportunities. And then once I met with the local organizations that Mr. Hartman and I talked about, not many of them got back to me, and when I presented to one of them, they ended up not getting back to me in the end. And so I had to pivot a little bit and try to find more people who may be willing to donate. And so there was a lot of conflict with getting in contact with people. But eventually, I got in contact with Della Rieger and Preston Troutman, and I set up a meeting with both of them, and I presented the same outline for the pitch that I did for all the other organizations. And they both are travel enthusiasts and love travel and were willing to donate, and they both donated $500 up front. So this is, So this is my pitch and what I presented to them, and then this is a picture of me getting the check from Preston Troutman. And then also I created the application process for students to apply to so that they can apply to the scholarship, and it just asks basic information about their travel history and then just information about them. And then once we had some money, we presented it to the students who wanted to travel internationally to let them know that this scholarship was available and that they could apply to it and try to win some money. And I also created a spreadsheet of all the people who donated. Okay, so for my knowledge and communication, reading and writing, I sent a ton of emails, set up a ton of meetings, and then created the slideshow for the pitch that I presented to the organizations. I created a Google Forms for the application and then my pre-search paper as well. And these are pictures of my communication with Della and Mr. Troutman and then Mr. Hartman as well. For my communication, I had meetings with community members and admin. My meetings with admin were to talk about what group of people would go through the applications and decide who would receive the scholarship, and then presenting to people as well. For my math principles, I chose math principle 4, 5, and 8. Math principle 4 is models with mathematics. I counted and distributed money, and then I used a spreadsheet to keep track and log all of the incoming donations. I put the donator's name, the amount, their check number, and the date received, and then at the bottom, the total, which was, we raised $1,500. For Math Principle 5, uses appropriate tools strategically. I used Premiere Pro to create an informative video for my capstone, and Premiere Pro is just a video creating system where you can put a ton of videos and photos in, and you can overlap and put words and music and stuff over it. And then I used a Google form to create the application process, and then I also created a QR code for students to scan so that it was easier to get to the application. So for Math Principle 8, looks for and expresses regularity and repeated reasoning. I used the cost of the trips, payment plans, paying for 1/4 plus of the trip. So this year's trip was $4,959. So if you divide that by 4, you get $1,239.75. So one student is going to get a little bit more than 1/4 of their trip paid for. So these are the payment plans that EF has in place. So there's the monthly or bi-weekly, which is the recommended one and the one that everybody usually goes with. And then there's pay at your own pace, where there's no fixed schedule, you just pay when you can. The pay in full, and then the new one where you can pay with a firm and travel now and pay later. And then there's some disclosures where if you book your trip less than 100 days in advance, then you pay a little bit more money. For my trades and skills, I chose civility and collaboration. What I did is I met with community members and administration. I learned how to work around other schedules and ask detailed questions for detailed answers. My application is to be precise and work through conflicts with an open mind. For collaboration, I worked with my professional consultants and the community members. I learned more about taking the lead and getting things done and teamwork. And then the application is working with new people in new places. So I learned a lot more about money and international travel and communication, and I brought in more knowledge on international travel and found a way to help pay for someone's trip. And I faced a lot of challenges through this. And in the future, I want to travel the world and raise money for others to be able to travel as well. My call to action was attending one of these trips through EF and trying to raise money to attend, and I wanted everyone to have an experience like me. My acknowledgements are my advisors and all of the people who supported me throughout, like my professional consultants and then all of my donors.
Hi, my name is Zia Guyan. My name is Addison Quakenbush, and for our capstone, we raise money for the Make-A-Wish Foundation. So over the past 41 years, the Make-A-Wish Colorado has granted over 6,700 wishes for children with critical illnesses, and 100% of medical providers through that have reported that the wish improved a child's emotional well-being. Our driving question for this project was, how can we produce a wish week that is capable of helping a child's needs while also helping the Make-A-Wish Foundation as a whole? So just a little bit about me. I'm in the health pathway currently and plan to go to CSU Fort Collins to get a bachelor's in biology and then go into a master's in pediatric occupational therapy. Here at the high school, I have participated in Student Council, National Honor Society, Link Crew, GATE, HOSA, as well as lots of participation in the vocal music department. And over the summer, I completed an internship at St. Thomas More Hospital, and I've also completed PCC credits through PCC. All right, I'm also in the health pathway. I'm going to get my bachelor's in biology as well to become a pediatrician. Throughout high school, I've been involved in the National Honor Society, Link Crew, GATE, NHS, soccer, and basketball. I also completed the work study for RAP Masters and have completed 65 PCC credits. So our professional consultant for our capstone was Tina Stroman. She is a coordinator for the Make-A-Wish Foundation, and she's been doing that for about 3 years. Previous to that, she spent 30 years teaching Spanish, as well as participating in her student government and instructional coaching in Douglas County high schools. And she also attended CSU and got a degree in Spanish education, as well as a master's in education. So for our capstone, we raised money for a boy named Tommy who was diagnosed with neuroblastoma cancer. His wish was to go to Hawaii. We decided to do this to bring our community and school closer together and while also helping someone out. And some background information for it, we started this throughout Student Council, and then Zia and I decided to take this upon ourselves just to make the project a little bit bigger. So this is the link to our Unruler timeline, and then going into the actual timeline of our project, it took about 4 months from start to end. Starting in November of last year, we had meetings with Mr. Laughlin as well as Student Council to kind of get the project off its feet and see where we could go with it, and we also began finding different sponsors for our activities that we planned to do. And then moving into December, we started our meetings with our professional consultant, and that was to kind of understand what the goal of this was and how we were going to complete it. And we also finalized our fundraising ideas and dates for all the basketball games that we were going to have activities at, as well as plans and ideas for those basketball games. Moving into January was when our fundraising really started. We had our table set up at every single home basketball game for girls and boys the season last year, as well as at the home wrestling meets and tournaments that were held. And this was where we started to see the most challenges in our project. It was difficult to kind of understand our audience at first, and we learned a lot through that. And then going into February of last year, we continued and finalized our fundraising, as well as held our Wish Week at the high school, which was a week to honor Tommy and talk about all the money that we were able to raise for it through all the things that we did. We also had an assembly at the end of that week where we got to bring the whole student body together for something bigger than ourselves, and we also dyed our security guard's beard for the amount of money we raised, kind of to get more participation in the assembly as well.
So one of the traits and skills that Zia and I showed throughout this project was knowledge. We did this through reading and writing. We had to communicate a lot with others through like posters. We also made an Instagram account where we just shared more information about the activities that we'd be doing at the basketball games, just so we could have bigger participation. Here's also pictures of the emails that we sent to James McDaniels, one of the speakers at our basketball games, just kind of saying what we wanted him to say at the basketball games, and we also have included a picture of Troy, which was sharing why we would dye his beard.
And these are just some more examples of the different posters that we made throughout our project, including our Coffees for a Cause poster, which was held during our Wish Week, and also informational posters about us and our capstone, and the fundraiser itself. And then moving into our social media side of things, we had an Instagram as well as it was linked to a Facebook account that we could post information on to reach a wider audience of people, and this is kind of just some examples of that. So then another big part of our capstone was communicating. We did a lot of public speaking and working with a lot of people. One of the main things that we did was talking. We had to not only talk at our Wish Week Assembly and give speeches there, but we also talked at every single basketball game that we were at, just to kind of let people know why we were there and get people in on the loop. We also had meetings with our professional consultant once a month at least. We had a few more towards the end of it, just to keep her in the loop and make sure that she was helping us with everything that we needed help with as well. And we also presented all of the information that we were collecting at the student council meetings once a month to keep them informed and in the loop on the things. And also, whenever we needed help with things that we couldn't do ourselves, we would also ask for that then. And here's just some examples of that.
So for our math principles, we chose 1, 2, and 5. So the first one was make sense of problems to persevere in solving them. Zia and I faced a lot of challenges with just participation in the basketball games, and so it was very important for us to see which games did the best. We found that Chuck-a-Duck included the most participation for students, adults that were attending the games, and just people from different schools as well. They enjoyed that. So we created a chart from every game that people attended and just which activities raised the most money. That just helped us understand our audience, what they liked more, and what got the most money for our fundraiser.
Our second math principle was reasons abstractly and quantitatively. In total, we were able to raise $3,547 through our capstone, and according to the Make-A-Wish Foundation, the average cost of a wish in Colorado is $7,500. So we kind of did math and deciding how much of an impact we would be able to make, and we found that 47% of a wish from a child in Colorado we were able to grant, which was really just kind of nice for us to be able to see. And we also talked with our professional consultant in seeing just kind of where high schools start out, and this was a really good starting place for a school, especially as small as our own. And through our efforts, we also got to contribute to the over 300 wishes granted on average in Colorado each year.
Our next math principle that we used was math principle 5, which was uses appropriate tools strategically. So just keeping track of the money that we raised was very important for us. One way we did this was through the data tables. Like I said earlier, we had to keep track of each game just to see which activities did the best and raised the most money for Tommy, which is where we found out that Chuck-a-Duck did the best. Another tool that we used was calculators and spreadsheets. This was to just kind of keep track of the overall money raised, just because we had money coming from different places like cash, checks, and then also an online website that we created as well.
So our chosen trait and skill was in integrity and leadership. Through our capstone, we had to have a lot of integrity in keeping track of all the money that we were raising, because we were in charge of that, as well as working with others and having that strong communication. It was also a big part of it was organizing the activities for games and leading them ourselves. It was a big step for both of us in the public speaking aspect of things, and just making sure that we were getting as much participation as possible while also reaching as many people as we were able to. Through this, we were able to learn a lot about our public speaking skills. We both had gained a lot and learned a lot from that. And we also learned that trust and doing the right thing is really important, especially when handling that amount of money. It's it's a little bit stressful, so it was nice for us to be able to trust each other and trust the people around us. One thing about that was after every single basketball game, we would count the money, track it in one of our spreadsheets, and then directly give it to Mr. Laughlin so none of it would get lost and we would be able to keep track of it all. And then application of this, we worked with a lot of our peers to complete the Wish Week, and it helped us to keep track of all of our expenses and funds raised through the whole project, as well as with other people that were helping as well.
Throughout this project, we learned a lot of lessons, but a couple of them were just how to raise and manage that money that we were dealing with, just because there was a lot incoming in different ways. We also had to learn how to be prepared and just be able to adapt to different changes, just because there were so many games where at the last second we would change an activity due to the amount of people that showed up. So just being able to adjust to that was very important. Just also being less afraid to speak out in public and grow new connections was also very important for us. I think we learned a lot of just speaking out in public and having one-on-one conversations, whether it was with someone in the school district or it was in front of the student body.
And then our call to action for our project was really just to inspire others to participate in things larger than themselves. That was something that was really important to the both of us, especially in bringing awareness to the Make-A-Wish Foundation. And we also just wanted to teach that little acts of kindness can have a huge impact on people's lives. And a quote that I found from the Make-A-Wish Instagram stated, "If you just make one wish come true, you're making a ton of other wishes come true, because that one person is going to go on to help a lot of other children like themselves." That's what my goal is. And I just found that really inspiring to know that these really do have an insanely immense impact on kids that are in the foundation.
There were a lot of people that helped us with this project, but we are very grateful, especially for Ms. Smila, Mrs. Weber, Tina Stroman, City on the Hill, Mr. Laughlin, Troy Wold, James McDaniel, and CCHS Student Council for helping us. Thank you.
All right, hello everyone. I just want to start off by saying thank you guys for showing up to my capstone. I'm really thankful that you guys are here to judge it. So I guess let's get into it. In a world full of scrolling thumbs, a small flower shop can bloom by turning likes into loyal customers through smart social media marketing. All right, my capstone is called Petals and Posts. My driving question is, how can social media marketing empower small businesses like CC Blossom Co? All right, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Brianna Mills. The pathway that I am in is arts, hospitality, and education. My interests and passions include wildlife biology, agriculture, and floristry. The clubs that I am in is Student Council and Link Crew. The internship that I did is CC Blossom Co. Exit Elevation Realty. My hobbies include crafting, baking, and learning a lot of new things. My future aspirations, I would like to be a wildlife biologist or an agriculture teacher. I would like to be a florist, a mother, and a wife. So this right here, this is my amazing professional consultant. Her name is Hallie Kerr. She is a realtor, stager, florist, and mom, and she's been around flowers since first grade. All right, and then for my capstone, I created a social media post through 3 separate platforms, TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram, to help CC Blossom Co. grow its outreach. The purpose of my capstone was to spread awareness for small businesses and grow outreach for CC Blossom Co. The goal of my capstone was to grow online outreach in some way through all 3 platforms. My background information includes just that I've posted content on personal accounts on all 3 platforms. All right, so it all started on March 24th of 2025. I started my PACE internship for CC Blossom Co. and Exit Elevation Realty. On March 20th, I posted for the first time on Facebook. May 17th, I started a TikTok account and posted for the first time. May 17th through June 17th, I did my first TikTok analytic check. On the picture up there on the left, you can see a spike in activity every single time I posted. There's obviously a rise in post views just because it was brand new. June 18th through August 1st, I posted 14 TikToks and 14 Facebook posts. June 18th through August 18th, I did my second TikTok analytic check. You can see a rise in post views. It's a little bit blurry up on that screen, but it does say 7%, which is good. It's a sign of growth. August 19th, I will dive into this a little bit more further into my presentation, but I posted a collab with Lux Canyon City and it piqued our insights. So you can see the data down there and also the post. That was a huge milestone in my capstone project. September 7th, I started an Instagram page and made the first 2 posts. August 1st, through September 8th, I posted 7 TikToks and 22 Facebook posts. August 18th through September 7th, I did my 3rd and final TikTok analytic check, and then I did my final Facebook and Instagram final Instagram and Facebook analytic checks on September 8th. I presented my capstone for the first time on September 30th, and now I'm here with you guys presenting for the competition. For my reading and writing, I created a pre-search paper. That's an unruler link to my pre-search paper. I also created a lot of flyers for CC Blossom Co., which included a lot of reading and writing skills. I'm going to go to the next slide, and it shows them a little bit more in depth. These were just a few of the ones that I did. They're my favorite ones. You can see all of the captions that I created, and I also practiced all of the hashtags and trying to reach a certain audience with those. For communication, last semester I was actually in honors public speaking, and I created a speech called Bloom Locally, and it's basically just talking about how important it is to shop locally. For my math principles that I chose number 1, make sense of problems and persevere in solving them. Number 2, reason abstractly and quantitatively. And then number 5, use appropriate tools strategically. All right, number 1, make sense of problems and persevere in solving them. The problem that I had was the small business outreach and marketing. Hallie Kerr, her business, she doesn't have a storefront, so it's a lot harder to get out there in a small town, so she has to rely on social media. I did a little bit more research in this, and on the left you can see a little bit of data that I pulled up. It shows the dark blue is sales and in-store, and the lighter blue is online, so you can see a lot of a difference between those, and how it's an annual problem and not just a local problem. The solution to this problem, I did trial and error in all of my posts. I experimented with different posting styles, and I did data-driven analysis of outreach on multiple platforms. So on the left, you can see that red post is before I started, and it has about 7 likes, 1 comment, and 1 share. And then a few months after I started this social media campaign, you can see a little bit of a rise in activity. I have 44 likes, 20 comments, and 2 shares. My second one was number 2, reason abstractly and quantitatively. This one was vital in my capstone project. I had to track the growth, obviously, throughout all the months. So on the top picture, you can see it's labeled Facebook. That is my analysis of the posts throughout that time span. After each post, you can see a rise in activity, especially around August 17th. TikTok, again, after each post you can see a rise in activity, and you can also see kind of when I started that TikTok page, because there's not much data until about halfway through. And then Instagram, due to it just being a short amount of time that it was up, I only had data on non-follower and follower views. So right there in that purple, that is our non-follower views, and the pink is the follower views. About 86% of it is non-follower, which is great because that is a sign of growth and outreach. And then here's where I wanted to dive in and highlight this collab that I did with Lux Canyon City. So on the right, that is my graph that you can see the spike in activity. That's about 3 times more than what it usually is. And the reason for that is up on the top of that post, we did a collab with Lux Canyon City, and that just basically means that it was posted on the CC Blossom Co. page and the Lux Canyon City, so it got twice the amount of views and activity from that, which was huge for the social media campaign. And then my third and final math principle was use appropriate tools strategically. This also was very important in my capstone project because I obviously had to track the growth somehow, and I was very lucky to have the TikTok Studio, Instagram Professional Dashboard, and Facebook Professional Dashboards. These are the tools that the platforms provide the creators with to track all of the activity throughout all of them. You can see all of them listed right there. The top one is Instagram, the one on the left is TikTok, and then the bottom one is Facebook. So they provide a lot of tools. You can see post views, profile views, likes, comments, obviously the graphs that I've been showing you all throughout this presentation. and more. And then the traits and skills that I chose was innovation and solution seeking, which was the most important for my capstone. For innovation, I discussed obstacles within CC Blossom Co. with Hallie Kerr. I addressed issues by introducing modern social media marketing styles, and I upgraded the profile pictures and the logo. So on the top one, that is her old logo, and we created a brand new one to post throughout all 3 platforms just to make everything cohesive and look great. Then solution seeking, Hallie already had social media accounts, but how could I make them better? So I applied modern social media marketing skills to all 3 platforms, and then monitored the analytics for success or failure. I wanted to highlight this on the top. That is the Instagram page that she had beforehand. It only had 80 followers, but then I created a new one and it had about 1/4 the amount of followers in 2 days, so that's a great sign of outreach. Lessons that I learned was how to effectively collaborate with adults with respect and grace, especially in the professional world, how to leave situations that are not benefiting me academically, and certain skills and ways to market flowers creatively. My call to action is to step out of your comfort zone and do hard things, and to shop local. I would like to thank the CCHS administration for making us do this capstone project. I learned a lot from it. I would like to thank Hallie Kerr, Ms. Lunsford, Ms. Snyder, and all of you judges for judging this capstone. Thank you.
By Naomi Rodas and Sonia Stavka. A 2025 study done by Baby Center found that the first year baby expenses now total more than $20,000, which for the average family is about 1/3 of their annual income.
Driving question: how can we help support mothers in need by using our passion for finger crocheting?
I'm Sonia Stavka. I'm a senior this year. I'm interested in going into the health pathway. I'm a part of CCHS show choir Encore. I'm in National Honor Society, Link Crew, HOSA, which have all built my leadership skills, and I'm CPR certified.
I'm Naomi Rodas. I'm a senior this year. I'm interested in the health pathway. I'm bilingual. I'm part of Link Crew and HOSA. One of my hobbies is crocheting, and I also am CPR certified, and I have a CNA certification from Pueblo Community College.
We chose Jody Enderly as our professional consultant. We immediately knew that she'd be a perfect mentor because we both attended Mountain View Core Knowledge, and she was our elementary school nurse. We knew of her experience in knitting, and she has RN expertise in medical and fiber arts.
Summer of our capstone, I got to teach Sonia how to crochet. We created crochet blankets for the pregnancy center. Our purpose was to support mothers in need, and our main goal was to provide comfort and support to our community.
Our timeline and process. So January 15th, we started making phone calls to chemo facilities because we originally wanted to make our blankets for chemo patients because when they go through their treatments, they get really cold. So we searched through facilities in Springs and Pueblo. Then February 18th, we looked locally. We couldn't find a facility that would accept our donation. So our professional consultant, she recommended looking into the pregnancy center. We went there and spoke to Story Thompson. She's the director, and she said they'd be more than welcome to accept our blankets. Then the same day, February 27th, we went over to Yarn and Dangerous and spoke to Tammy. She recommended making a prototype blanket to understand how many skeins of yarn we needed and what measurements. So we did that March 24th, we made our prototype blanket. Then June 23rd, we needed a way to gain the funds for the cost of the blankets. So we made a flyer, as you could see, we handed it out to you. And we went to local businesses on Main Street. That's July 7th, we gained all of our donations. Then July 15th, we went to Walmart and got yarn to make those blankets. September 10th, we went to Hobby Lobby, where we discovered a wide variety of colors. And October 2nd, we finished our blankets up, added the finishing touches with a tag, a logo, and a helping hand. And then October 6th, we delivered it to the pregnancy center.
Reading and writing. On our flyer, we have a helping hand, and we just gave a brief summary of what our capstone would look like. And then we also just explained our project goal. And then whenever it's titled sponsorship, we also just explained what it would look like if the business sponsored us. We created a project plan, and we wrote a research paper. We also made an Instagram page. We titled it A Helping Hand 2026, and we just gave the shout outs to the local businesses that helped us.
which were Pizza Madness, Canyon City Lanes, Parkview Motels, and Palace Drugs. And then we wrote emails with our professional consultant. As you can see here, Sonia just did a really good job of keeping in touch with our professional consultant, and we just kept her updating on our project.
Communicating, we did many phone calls with different facilities to find a place that would accept our blankets. And then that took us going into local businesses and also speaking to business owners about if they would be able to fund our capstone. And then working with each other, we were constantly communicating and sharing ideas, and we just had good teamwork. And our professional consultant and teachers, they gave us their opinions and were really helpful. Then, as you can see in this photo, we have our scheduled meeting with Mr. Summers to get our capstone approved, which he did, and he gave us additional thoughts to think about. Then, in this picture, the Pregnancy Center posted us on their Facebook page.
Math principles chosen. We chose math principle 2, reasons abstractly and quantitatively. We chose 3, constructs viable arguments and critiques the reasoning of others. And number 5, uses appropriate tools strategically.
With math principle 2, we found that we ran into challenges with uneven measurements. As you can see from this graph, we have our first blanket, which is our prototype blanket, of our ideal measurements. So the width was 32 inches. The length was 26 inches and the area was 832. And then we found as we started creating the blankets that each one varied in measurements, and that was due to the looseness and tightness of the loops. And then as we went on, we realized that some blankets just looked more symmetrical with different measurements than others did, and we learned to accept that was okay.
Math principle 3, we analyzed the relationship between Hobby Lobby and Walmart's prices. We made a price comparison bar graph. The blue bar graph represents the cost of yarn for each skein, and then the pink represents the number of blankets we made. We first started going to Walmart, and for one skein it was $7.42, and we made 10 blankets. Then we wanted to expand our color selection, so we decided to look into Hobby Lobby. We went to Hobby Lobby and we saw that for one skein it was $7.99 and we made 0. And then the following week we went back and we were lucky enough that there was a 30% discount on all yarn. And for each skein it was $5.59 and we made 14 blankets out of that. And there was also another clearance cart that had skeins for $1.99 and we made 1 blanket out of that. And for each blanket that we made, it consists of 5 skeins.
Math principle 5, we made graphs explaining how we were going to gain our donations and what we'd use that towards our expenses. So to gain our donations, we had 4 sponsors, our largest being Pizza Madness, and in total we gained $750. And then for those expenses, you can see how many Walmart trips we took and Hobby Lobby trips we took to gain the skeins of yarn, and then the total of it. And we had leftover $50, which we used to purchase diapers for the center.
Trades and skill chosen, we chose tenacity and reflection.
With tenacity, we overcame problems facing finding facilities and gaining the funds. Throughout our project, we learned that materials were going to be pricey, and throughout the project, we learned how to use time management and different skills in order to reach our common goal. And this can be applied to everyday problem solving and also future instances with fundraising and money.
Reflection, we just reflected on how we wanted to use our time wisely. Sonia and I just did a really good job of keeping communication and ensuring that we were on the same track. We stayed disciplined to reach our goal, which was 25 blankets, and we made 26. We assigned specific time slots to make the blankets. This was very essential because we spent all of our summer creating the blankets. And we can apply reflection on our day-to-day basis by growing in certain areas that we lack in and just in our characteristics.
With lessons learned, our project drew overall attention to overwhelmed mothers. We faced challenges through finding facilities, gaining the funding, and the time to make each blanket. We learned throughout how to stay flexible and that plans were always changing, especially with making the blankets and having to maybe restart. And then our project overall connected to our desire in helping others as we both plan to attend the medical field.
Our call to action, always accept a helping hand. It's super essential just to surround yourself with people who really care and support you. And if you're going through a tough time, to accept that helping hand. Get involved in your community. Sonia and I had a lot of fun doing this, and we just enjoyed contributing to our community and take up a new passion. Before this capstone, Sonia didn't know how to crochet, and it was just really rewarding to see how fast she picked it up and how we now have a new common interest to bond over.
With our acknowledgements, you can see our sponsors, Pizza Madness, Palace Drugs, Parkview Motel, and King and City Lanes. And then we have our teachers, Miss Milam and Miss Weber, for their guidance, and our professional consultant, Jody Enderly, including Story Thompson from the Pregnancy Center.
And here's our table of contacts. Thank you.